Yes, for the ancient Chinese philosophers or the thinkers, they believe the only you adopt a moral policy for your leadership, and you will get enough respect and trust to obtain the authority. That's why, in regarding the morality, Biden's morality even lower than Trump. On this issue, on this special issue, his morality is lower than Trump. Trump is a double standard. He is a hypocritic.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Mark S. Weiner, and I am the executive director of the Telos-Paul Piccone Institute. This is the second episode of our monthly webinar series called China Keywords, hosted by Eric Hendriks. China Keywords is a collaboration between TPPI and the Danube Institute in Budapest, where Dr. Hendriks is a fellow. Before I hand things over to Dr. Hendriks, I'd like first to send a special acknowledgement to our friends at the Danube Institute and to extend our hands in friendship across the Atlantic, including to their IT and media staff for their work today. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank those members of our audience who recently made a contribution to China Keywords, especially to our new sponsoring members. Welcome. We're delighted to have you join our circle of conversation. Your support is essential to our efforts as an independent institute. Finally, I'm pleased to share that we will soon make a formal announcement that TPPI's next annual meeting in March 2025 will likewise be called China Keywords and will grow from this series and the conversations that Dr. Hendriks is making possible. We're very excited about this conference, which is part of our larger TPPI's 5-year China initiative, about which you can learn more on our website, telosinstitute.net. I'll put that URL in the chat. Stay tuned, and now over to Eric.
Thanks so much, Mark. So this is the second episode of the China Keywords. Last time we discussed Tianxia, All Under Heaven, and today we'll be discussing Wangdao. And we have a special guest here in the studio, Yan Xuetong. He's arguably the leading social scientist in China today, the most prominent political scientist coming out of China. He is the dean of the Institute of International Relations at Tsinghua. And you have written extensively both on contemporary political affairs, geopolitical affairs, and the relevance of ancient political philosophy, ancient Chinese political philosophy for understanding the contemporary world and for enriching the contemporary world. And I like to talk to you today about the concept, as I mentioned, the concept of Wangdao. And I'm joined in this discussion with my colleague, Logan West. So Logan and I are both in the Danube Institute, but I'm also the director of the China initiative of the Telos-Paul Piccone Institute. And Logan will be representing the Cambridge podcast. So this we're having a live webinar now, but it will later be uploaded as a Danube Cambridge podcast. So we're teaming Danube Telos, and I'm going to be asking a few questions to Professor Yan, and Logan will ask a few questions. Now, in 2018, Professor Yan, you wrote an essay arguing that Wangdao could be the foundation for a new global ideological framework for maintaining peace and harmony in international affairs, especially if the concept of Wangdao would be updated in such a way as to incorporate the best parts of liberal democracy. So I want to start first by a very simple question. What is Wangdao, and how do you usually translate it into English?
Okay. Well, actually, the term of Wangdao is not coined by me. And this concept has been existed for 1,000 years.
Yes.
And in ancient time, the Chinese philosophers and thinkers have tried to distinguish different type of leadership, like the Wang, and means I translated into a human authority, and Ba, the hegemon, and Qiang, the tyranny. And actually, they even in Guanzi they use Di as a type of leadership, the empire. And so, from my understanding, in ancient time, and they have a different concept from at least modern IR scholars concerning looking into the global leadership or international leadership.
Yeah.
They concern the leadership could be different types, not only the difference in power or in capability. So they regard the leadership as a level of the human authority is the highest. It's much higher than the leadership of the hegemon. And certainly, the hegemon leadership is better than the tyranny leadership.
Yes.
So when you ask me what Wangdao means, it means a benign leadership. That's the core idea of this concept.
Benign leadership. And it has been, in your publications, you've also connected it to the concept of Qian Sha. And could you perhaps elaborate briefly on this? Because this was the topic of our previous episode, Qian Sha, All Under Heaven. So how is, these are both ancient concepts of Qian Sha and Wangdao. How would you relate them?
I think in ancient time, the term Tianxia, all under heaven, and refers to a kind of authority. And when it's talking about Tianxia or all under heaven, and when apply to the whole world, it means the authority of the world, the top authority of the world. When they use the term Tianxia or the all under heaven to apply to a state, it means a power, a ruling power of the state. Mm-hmm. So I think after a Chinese philosopher interpreted this term Tianxia, all under heaven as system, I think it's misleading. A lot of foreign scholars believe that this term refers to system. No, this term never refers to a system. It refers to authority or power. So if you ask me what's the relationship between the human authority leadership and the concept of all under heaven, it refers to if you provide the leadership of human authority, mm-hmm. and you will get the authority all over the world. Mm. But the authority is different from the power. Authority based on others' trust rather than based on your military capability. Power is more based on capability rather than people's trust. Mm. That's the difference. That's why after the Cold War, the American scholars, and they cannot find a way to distinguish a leadership between the hegemon and a leadership better than that. So they use the term benign hegemon. No matter benign or not, it's still hegemon. In Chinese, the hegemon translated into the Ba Dao. No matter the hegemon, how good the hegemon, it's a level lower than the Wangdao, the human authority leadership. Mm-hmm.
So Wangdao is a humane authority that persuades via authority, via persuasion, via inspiration, and Badao would be more coercive.
Yes.
But when you said that Qian Sha shouldn't be interpreted as a system, and that some modern scholars have interpreted as a system, mm-hmm. were you referring to Zhao Tingyang's revival?
Yeah.
So what would be wrong? Just as a quick side note with this modern interpretation of Qian Sha as a system.
Okay. Look at the literature meaning of the term Tianxia. What means Tianxia? Tian means heaven. Yeah. Xia means under heaven. Mm-hmm. What is under heaven? Under heaven refers to the people on the earth. You cannot say, because the heaven is only above earth, not above universe. So if the earth is under the heaven, and it do not mean refers to this non-life things. It refers to what? Socially, only the species with life, human being. So all under heaven means the human being under the earth, and they may have a one authority. This authority was trusted by the people, no matter from any tribe, states, or nation, or cities. They trust that authority. They believe that authority will provide leadership and make people cooperate with each other to survive. So this is what it means under heaven. So literally, under heaven means people on the earth.
Okay, people on the earth focused on a trusting relationship with a leader that benefits them.
Yes, so that's why Xunzi once makes a distinction between the leadership of under the heaven and the leadership of the state. He said that you can use a force to grab the leadership of the state. You can control the state.
Yes.
Because what? Because the leadership of state is an instrument.
Yeah.
Because state is the instrument, you can hold it.
Yeah.
So you can use a force to do that. But the Tianxia, the authority of Tianxia is not an instrument. You cannot use Tianxia or all of the heaven to do anything. What you can do, you have to gain the respect or trust of the people under the heaven. Then you can have authority. That's why he said that now no leaders can grab the authority of the leadership of the Tianxia, but he can grab the leadership of the state. And the leadership of the Tianxia, that the leadership on the earth, will perish by itself. You can never hold it.
You can never hold it.
If you lost the people's trust.
Okay. But can a leader could center the Tianxia as a leader if he uses Wangdao. Only if he uses Wangdao.
Yes, for the ancient Chinese philosophers or the thinkers, they believe that only you adopt a moral policy to for your leadership, and you will get enough respect and trust to obtain the authority. If you do not, you adopt the immoral policy, mainly double standard or hypocrisy and these things, you can never get respect. You have no authority. Look at that, and why the junior in the late 1980s, when the U.S. initiated the war in the Gulf War, and get the international leadership easily and with support from the whole world, because he provided a kind of moral leadership to resume the state Kuwait being destroyed by Iraq, right? So he helped, in Chinese term, they said that you help ruin the state to rebuild itself. That's regarded as a moral. So this moral policy and obtained support and from the rest of the world, so the U.S. can obtain the leadership today. And by White House support the Israelis' policy to killing the people in Gaza, and this regarded immoral, and the White House cannot get any support from the rest world. And at the UN, when they vote, even the UK keep distance from the US, right? All of the other members of the UN security member vote yes, and the US vote abstain. And the first time he even vetoed it, but the others, no one followed it, including the UK. And even the Biden office staff hold the demonstration in front of the White House, require for stop aid the Israel. Stop, cease fire. So that's why you can see U.S. with such huge military capability, he cannot provide any leadership on the issue in the Gaza war.
Okay, so we're jumping straight into the contemporary politics, showing the relevance of these terms. So both Wangdao and Qiansha are terms that are used in contemporary political discourse. It's important for the viewers to know. They're used in contemporary academic and political discourse in China. And even though they're ancient notions, they're seen as having a high contemporary relevance, right? But of course, the world has changed a lot, and these concepts has also been updated. Now, you mentioned that the way that Zhao Tingyang has updated Qiansha as a system, you think that that's not a good conceptual upgrade because Qiansha shouldn't be considered a system. What about the conceptual upgrades of Wangdao? So Wangdao, when contemporary Chinese scholars speak of Wangdao, does it resemble the ancient ways Chinese thinkers talk about Wangdao, or has the meaning of the concept broadened or changed, or hasn't gotten new meanings? For example, Wangdao, I mean, we also got a question, by the way, from one of our audience members, from Yan Xuetong from the University of Sussex, and he asks, quote, Wangdao is a concept theorized in pre-imperial China and appropriated by figures such as Sun Zhongshan, Sun Yat-sen during imperial China's transition to a modern state. And then I would like to add that the idea of China as a cosmic center to China so the idea of China, when China modernized, China became not what it had previously been, the central realm of the world, the world-centering center, but it became a state among states in an international order. So he continues, what limits does this complex conceptual history set for the appropriation of the concept in the 21st century? How can the concept serve to interpret the intention and actions of the Chinese Communist Party, domestically and internationally?
And the first, I have to say, the concept of Wangdao, or the human authority, are not accepted by the Chinese government. By now, and since 1949, when Chinese Communist Party ruled this country, never used this term to govern its foreign policy. And this term regarded as bad is not only the concern this is the ancient ideas by the Confucianism, but also because the Japanese invasion of China during World War II. Because this term is used by Japanese military and as a propaganda for their invasion of China. Yeah. So-called establish a happy land with human authority. Actually, it's not true. So I think the term has already demonized by the Japanese invasion of China. That's why no people want to use it. But why this time this term becomes catching attention is that, especially after Trump take over the office in White House, and people find that, hey, the leadership's morality is a really big issue. Leadership morality have a strong impact on the policy making and have strong impact on the global order. So then, and also certainly on the benefits, profits of the people. And people say, what kind of leadership we need for our own country, for the world. So that's now when I developed the theory of moral realism, I said that, okay, we can categorize the international leadership according to the traditional Chinese category and human authority, hegemony, and tyranny, and the democracy. And people say, hey, we do should think about. And the leadership is not only categorized according to capabilities, not political systems, not ideologies, is what? Their morality. Whether they value their credibility, whether they give the first priority to the people's interests. So, for instance, here you find that, and the core of the concept, the human authority, the Wangdao, refers to benigneness. Benign only for it's a kind of requirement for what? Too strong to the weak. The boss to the subordinates, the teacher to students, parents to children. So the benigneness concept can only apply to the strong and the upper. You cannot require the lower class, the poor, the weak, and to be benign. So that's why it's a special requirement for the people who have the power, money, or any influence, be benign to others, to those who have less money, who have less power to you. So I think this is a very special concept of Chinese, and because it's not it's equally applied to everyone. No, the Wangdao, the concept of Wangdao only apply to the stronger power. If you are stronger, you should be benign. You are the weaker, nowhere ask you to be benign.
Yeah. So this is the way you're often labeled as a moral realist, and this fits your catchphrase very well, because you realistically proceed from the realization that there are power differences. Power differences between states, between different groups in society, between different people, different positions. You acknowledge that, and you say that, well, this is not disappearing, but still we need morality, especially to manage those asymmetries. And now it's interesting that because my next question was going to be about that you mentioned the appropriation by Japan, because so the Wangdao was incorporated in the Japanese propaganda during the Second World War. They were and they were actually warned by Sun Yat-sen, by Sun Yat-sen in 1924 in Kobe, when he spoke. So the founding father of modern China spoke to Japanese Pan-Asianists in Kobe, Japan, in 1924, and told them, I love that we care so much about Wangdao, and he contrasted Wangdao to Badao, to hegemony. And he said we have the East Asia, the Asian peoples, Japan and China, should take the way of Wangdao, and then inspire everyone around the world to break free from Western colonialism, American capitalism, from their Badao, their rule of might, their hegemony. And but then he also mentioned to his Japanese audience, because he'd been seeing that there were some nationalistic movements in Japan, he was saying, well, make sure that you really choose Wangdao. You don't just pretend to choose Wangdao, while actually taking the way of Badao. So therefore my question is, how can we distinguish a foreign policy that's genuinely based on Wangdao from imposters or mistaken understandings of Wangdao?
Okay, and the first I would like to say, and the benevolence is a kind of a morality. This kind of morality only being required for the stronger to the weak, never required to everyone. So during the World War II, when Sun Yat-sen tell the Japanese, you should implement the principle of Wangdao, the human authority, because you are stronger than China. If you are weaker than China, we never ask you to do that. The stronger should do that, because that is special morality for the stronger party. Second, like you said, this is Muncher's discovery, the Muncher's distinction between the human authority and hegemon. He said that what is hegemon? Hegemon means rhetorically give the lip service to morality, and actually they use the force to protect or achieve their own interests instead of what they said. For instance, today we find that the White House did the same thing. Why? On the one hand, they say, okay, they protect the human rights and the democracy regards every individual's life as equal. But then when they come to the war in Gaza, they said, oh, wait a minute. the children, the women's life, Pakistani people's life are not equal to Israelis' life. And they said the Hamas killed thousands of Israelis. Then what? They didn't say, okay, if Israeli retaliation and you have the right to do the retaliation, but you cannot kill more than that. The Israel has 30 times more than their civilian deaths. And the U.S. don't think this is not unfair. So this is now that people talking about hypocrisy. Actually, there's a difference between hypocrisy and a double standard. Double standard are a little bit better than the hypocrisy. And even use the double standard as a criteria to judge the hegemon, you find that the hegemon's morality is lower than the Wangdao, the human authority. So the people say, okay, if you're hegemon, you're not that moral, at least you have to carry out a double standard principle. And hypocrisy, from my understanding, even lower than the double standard. You can see that Trump adopted the same policy as Biden toward the war in the Gaza. Why? There's a strong criticize of Biden, but not Trump in the U.S. Because the Trump said, that's my policy. I never hide it. So this double standard, that's true. Trump adopted a double standard, and to judge the value of the life of the Israelis and the Palestinians, and then he supported Israel. Biden is the opposite. Biden said, no, their life is equal. Rhetorically, he said they are equal, but actually he didn't print the principle of every life is equally important. So this is called hypocrisy. That's why, regarding the morality, Biden's morality even lower than Trump. On this issue, on the special issue, his morality is lower than Trump. Trump is a double standard. He is a hypocritic.
Okay, there's Logan, maybe this is a good time for you to jump in with, because Logan is going to talk about the great power diplomacy, and you're hailing from Washington, so
technically Ohio, but Professor, I want to bring a bit more towards the present day geopolitics. China currently pursues a doctrine of what's called Dagua Waijiao, which roughly translates as great power diplomacy. But recently there seems to be a change in the tone of it, where it's becoming more subtle. If this is true, what has precipitated it, and is this tone more in line with the Wangdao ideal?
Well, I still have to clarify, the concept of Wangdao are not accepted by Chinese government. They never to guard their foreign policy according to this traditional principle, Wangdao. And why they adopted this diplomacy called as a major powers diplomacy? Because China realized that, and China have to take more responsibility than other countries, except the United States, for the world. Because China is already the second largest economy, and China's GDP is times of the third country, Japan and Germany, right? The other country. So that's why they said, if we take the same responsibility as the other major powers, and then China will be criticized. Hey, you are not responsible for the collective interests. For instance, I think this is universal everywhere. If there's a flood in the village and they need the help, immediately the people in this village will come to the richest guy and say, hey, you have to donate more money for doing something to protect us, right, to dealing with the flood. So the same for the world. This time when I visited this trip to Europe, I found that there's an increasing expectation for China to play more role in shaping the global order. And why? And my understanding is that the people think you're a second largest power. You should. And they said, I'm weaker than you, so I shouldn't take the same responsibility as you, but you should do that. But for China, also, we certainly need to do we undertake more responsibility than the other countries. But the U.S. should undertake more responsibility than China. That's why officially we said that we have no intention to take over Americans' leadership. What means leadership? Leadership means responsibility. U.S. should be responsible for the war in Gaza. U.S. should be responsible for the war in Ukraine. U.S. should be responsible for, if you're really leader, you have responsible world leader, global leader, you should be responsible for all things. Otherwise, USA can say, no, I'm not a leader. I gave up the leadership. I won't undertake the leadership. Okay. But now if US, on the one hand, he said, claim he's provide leadership for world. He's a leading power. He's a leading power of the world. On the other hand, he said, I do not want to take the responsibility. This won't be accepted by society. That's why, and Trump is different from Biden. Trump is clearly stated to his people and to the world, I do not want to undertake the global leadership.
When it comes to those responsibilities of leadership, how does Wangdao approach the matter of great power diplomacy and how it relates to China's leadership of furthering equality and democracy between nations on the world stage?
Well, when we're talking about the global leadership, and my understanding that depends on if we measure the leadership, we usually measure at two aspects, popularity and quality. Popularity refers to how many followers you have, and the quality refers to what's the weight of your followers. And at this moment, I think everyone agree with that. America has more followers on many issues than China. The followers with the U.S. and often and has more weight than China. So that means America's leadership is obviously larger than China's leadership. And also because this, and since U.S. have this kind of leadership, and then how much responsibility they will take. If U.S. take the equal responsibility, I think U.S. will maintain that leadership. But if U.S. do not undertake that according responsibility, U.S. leadership will also decline. So if you're talking about what's related to the moral religious theory or what's related to the Wangdao, that really depends on how the global leadership and be now to their followers. And for the regional leadership, and how be now they to the regional followers, and to if for on the specific issue, and that depends on how the leading powers and be now to the followers who are involved in the same issue.
When it comes to that issue of how nations will work together, let's bring it to Central Europe. How do you see China's policies towards Hungary and the rest of the European Union developing?
Oh, by the way, can I just jump in here? Did we tell the viewers that we're based in Hungary? I'm not sure. I forgot if you mentioned it actually. We are based here in Hungary, Central Europe. Take it away, sir.
So how do you see the future of China's policies developing in Hungary and Central Europe with these ideas in mind?
I think at this moment, China-Hungary's relationship is pretty good, and it's quite reliable and stable. So from my understanding, and China value this relationship and also concerned to develop or improve the relationship with other East Asian European countries and through bilateral relationship with Hungary. But then when you ask the question about how about the relationship has an impact on the EU, on the Europe, I think that's a little bit large. the bilateral relationship between China and the US has a limited impact, and possibly has a very obvious impact on the Eastern Europe, but not for the whole Europe. The whole Europe is so big, and especially, and if you have the general concept of Europe, including the Russia and the UK, that's really a huge area. So I think this bilateral relationship between China and Hungary and do have some impact on your neighbors.
Mm-hmm. One of these policies that has gotten a lot of attention recently in the news is the new public security agreement between China and Hungary that will allow Chinese police officers to patrol on Hungarian territory alongside Hungarian police officers. Public Security Minister Yan Xuetong has actually expressed a desire to see the relationship develop further, keeping in mind issues such as counterterrorism and transnational crime. What do you think that future cooperation would look like if it came to pass?
Well, I think these are very positive things. And China has already developed this kind of police-to-police cooperation with many countries. And this is not deal with national security. It's a deal with social security. And I means that deal with criminals and not the foreign threat. And it could be the terrorist, the foreign, but it is not the state actor. It's non-governmental. So I think this is kind of police-to-police cooperation different from the military to military. Mm-hmm. And so in this way, I think this is just to help each other to consolidate and the social stability. On the other hand, this cooperation can also provide a new base for stabilize China and Hungary's bilateral relationship.
It's been kind of hyped then in the press with the word security, because of course the press always said that there's a security agreement, and that's basically the English word security is too broad because it covers both the military and the police. So basically, there's been a bit of a hype in the media.
Yeah, even in terms of security and the police with the police-to-police cooperation for the civil security, and military to military for national security. There are two different fields.
But in regards to social security and the idea of stability, what are some threats that you would see China and Hungary cooperating on that relate to counterterrorism or transnational crime?
Oh, I don't know the details about these crime things, but I think nowadays there's actually the most the scary thing to the people is electrical
electric vehicles, electric batteries.
No,
诈骗.
Electrical criminals and electric cheating or the
digital crime.
Digital crime, yeah, I think digital crime is a very serious. And in China, we have cooperated with the neighbors, and because there's a lot of digital crimes, and they do these things across the border.
Yeah, you mean also things like hacking, perhaps?
Not hacking, they're cheating money.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Not hacking your computer, but then they transfer your money from your bank account to their account.
Okay.
These kind of crimes are very serious.
Digital financial crimes. Okay.
Yeah. This is real serious.
So this will be my last question, and I'll turn it back over to Eric. Later this year, Hungary is set to become the president nation of the European Union, starting in July, and it's a presidency that will last 6 months. What impact will that have on China's relationship both with Hungary and the European Union, considering Hungary will be in such a powerful position?
I didn't carry the question very much.
Sure. So Hungary will become the president nation of the European Union.
Oh.
What impact will that have on relations with China?
Well, I think the short visit to China has already sent out a signal that at least Germany and China are prepared to resume and the cooperation between two sides. And the pandemic and the war in Ukraine has already cut off a lot of regional cooperation between China and Europe. I think if Hungary can help to resume this originally existed cooperation between China and Europe, that's already good enough.
Yeah. You mentioned that Hungary and China have very good relations. I've heard it argued that they actually have the best relations right now, that Hungary has the best relations of all EU countries with China. And an illustration of this is that Orban Viktor, the Prime Minister of Hungary, was the only EU national leader representing his country at the third Belt and Road Summit in Beijing last year. So how would you assess the importance of Hungary to China?
Nowadays the EU has a big problem is that the Brussels has more and more power, and the EU members has less power to make their own independent policies. And even what I heard in Germany, and the people complain, and Brussels have make too much a decision, and instead of consulted with the members of EU. So, and I think how much the Hungary can play the positive role for improving China-EU relationship, actually, that really depends on how much you can deal with Brussels. If you cannot, right? If you cannot convince these policymakers in the Brussels, and they make decision by themselves that they ignore the conference president or chairman, and you cannot play any role.
Just to be naughty, do you think we could apply some of these Chinese concepts to the European situation right now? Are the EU federalists, if they are too ambitious in centralizing power in Brussels, are they governing with Wangdao?
Yeah, and actually, I think at this moment, this I think these the policymakers in Brussels have been behaved and beyond their the identity, and they should identify themselves as a representative of the members of the EU, rather as a leader of the EU. But now they regard themselves as a leader of the members of the EU. So the issue orders. I think the relationship should change. So my understanding for the identity of these policymakers in Brussels, they should reconsidering and their position. And if they regard the leaders, the other countries and national leaders as just followers, I think there will be big trouble.
Yes, So this is a big ideological struggle right now on the European continent. So
let's suppose, and when the UN Secretary General sent out the orders to every country's president, okay, orders Biden, tell Biden what you should do. Can you imagine that? What will happen?
Well, but a true European federalist may argue that they have the mandate of heaven. They have the Tian Sha. They rule. They're not just the European Tian Sha is represented by them.
Yes, the Tian Sha, the Tian Sha, all that heaven within the EU, actually represented by them, based on what? Based on that's all and heaven's respect and trust. When the all, that means the people in these member states no longer trust them, they don't have any authority. They cannot represent anyone. So how can they consolidate the base for their authority? Without base, there's no authority.
Maybe they'll say that the member states are like children to them, and they want to care for us like a good parent.
I think in some way they believe if they have the power, they will have authority. In China, actually, many people believe the authority is based on power, not based on trust. Actually, totally wrong. I give you one case to illustrate that. Okay, what's the difference between police and the doctor? Both police and doctor can tell the people what they should do. Why the people will follow the suggestion and from doctor willingly, but not to police.
Those would be very good people, by the way, because I know quite some people who don't. Doctors always complain that their patients are not actually taking their medicine.
No, the doctor has authority based on his knowledge. And so these people trust the doctor. You know more than me about my illness. You know more than me about how to cure my disease. So I follow your advice. But the police, no people believe police have anything more than them except power. I know you have more power, so you force me to do it. Okay. I don't think you're right. I have no trust, no belief, nothing with you. So I have to surrender to you because you have power. That means you even have pistol with you. Yeah. So this is a very typical case to show that what is authority, what is power.
You know, like a few years ago, when I got a fine in the train in Germany because I forgot to buy a ticket. I should have used this argument. I should have did. Where's your? Are you doing applying the Wangdao? Or where is this Badao? Yeah. I have a final question about back to Hungary and the foreign policy concept that is currently trending in Hungary. So the new buzzword over here in foreign policy circles is connectivity, and the argument is we shouldn't have big blocs. We shouldn't have smaller states listening to the leaders of big blocs, but instead we should have a world in which smaller countries like Hungary, but countries around the world can reach out to different cultural zones, different civilizations, different political systems, and we can make connections, global connections in all kinds of ways without following, strict bloc logic. And a man that you're going to meet, he's the political director of the prime minister, or Orbán Balázs. So it's the same family name as the prime minister, but he's not family related. And he theorizes this concept, and he writes, it's an alternative globalization model. So connectivity is an alternative globalization model that can overcome the negative effects inherent to the bloc system. Its essence is that a country, in this case Hungary, should strive to maintain connections with as many other countries and market players from all over the world as possible. These connections should not be purely economic, but could also include trade, infrastructure ties, investment, and knowledge transfer, as well as public diplomacy. Such a model eliminates the dangers of peripheralization. States can build and control their relations with other actors without limitations from bloc leaders. So how would such a connectivity approach fit with the Chinese ideal of Wangdao? Would this be really well matched, or would you say that if you have a bloc leader that acts with true Wangdao, then everyone in the bloc should fall in line? Or is it when the bloc leader is not acting with good Wangdao, then such a connectivity approach outside of the blocs is legitimate? Okay.
The first, I still need to make to repeat the clarification and about the concept of Wangdao, human authority. It's a morality required for strong power or stronger power only. And so for these weak states, and I don't think these concepts are relevant for them, only when they deal with the states even weaker than them. And in regarding what kind of the new globalization, and I think now we really need a new global leadership for reglobalization. Without the leadership, it's very difficult to have the globalization. But then there's another approach. A human being could develop a kind of a globalization based on balance of power. That means based on a joint leadership, or based on the major powers cooperation, not one power's leadership. So that's another approach. And definitely, you cannot, based on globalization, based on military confrontation between major powers, because the competition will split the world into two parts. Globalization means the majority of the members of the world will cooperate with each other, rather than and two camps. If you divided the 200 countries into two camps, each of them have 100, and then say, okay, we have this 100 for globalization. No, that's not true. No one can have 50% of the states have globalization. That won't happen. And so here I will say, and if we want to, we must recall the history to see how the globalization come from. It comes from the two markets merged as one when the collapse of the mutual economic mutual conference market, right, headed by the Soviet Union. And so when the world merged into a one market, and then you can have economic globalization. If the world divided into two markets, you can never, no matter how integrated as one market. Okay, EU is already one market. The economic integration is very deep, and you can regard EU as one market. No matter how integrated, you cannot call this globalization. At most, you can say this regionalization, not globalization.
Yeah, and you want ultimately your ideal is that Wangdao guides the entire global order.
Yes, that's my concern, and the global leadership of human authority should advance or push forward globalization rather than to adopt a deglobalization policy.
Yeah, but more pessimistically, let's say for a long time we're going to get stuck in a level with different blocks confronting each other.
Yeah,
You'll still have the question. As a small country like Hungary, you have to question, how do you relate to the bloc? So a big question right now in Hungary is, okay, China and America, let's assume they should, of course, this is also very much the Hungarian line, they should manage their relationship peacefully and harmoniously. That's very much the Hungarian line. But it's going to be very difficult. Let's say China and America get into some kind of confrontation. Then as Hungary can do, it can choose one of the two sides, but it can also say there's such a thing as a connectivity approach where different powers around the world reject the standoff between China and America and say, even if China and America are unconstructive, we're not gonna play along this game. We're gonna make ties everywhere and try to keep as much as the globe together as possible.
Well, actually, from my understanding, and it's not there's a slight opportunity for the world to resume globalization in short term. So the trend of counter globalization just happened for a few years. It will continue, and at this moment, it's possibly too early to talking about a new globalization. And the more practical way is talking about how to freezing the counter globalization. If we cannot minimize the trend, if we can do better, at least we can slow the trend of the counter globalization. And before we are able to slow down the counter globalization, and I doubt we can talk about new globalization. So we have to do it step by step.
Yeah, but when you say we, you usually
mean the whole world.
The whole world. But you're usually, because you're a leading international relations scholar from China, so you usually think of the China's responsibility in the world. You also reflect on America's responsibility in the world, but you're mainly focused on these great powers. But what is the role of all these smaller countries that are looking at the situation and are in despair over deglobalization, let's say, because Hungary wants to re-globalize. But from a position, it doesn't have a position of power. So what kind of role would it play?
I think there's one thing every state, no matter big or small, can do it, and to to discuss about what's the substance or what the meaning of economic security. This concept is very, very anti-globalization. And because if anybody and try to improve or increase its economic security, must sacrifice economic development, because the economic security basically be protected by reducing international contact, reducing international cooperation, reducing economic interdependence. So in that way, if we, at the beginning, we gradually reduce people's fear about economic security, that will be helpful for everybody to discuss about how can we resume global cooperation.
Yeah.
When everyone is fear about their national economic security, I doubt they will prefer to develop more economic cooperation, because hey, wait a minute, that's dangerous.
But wait, but wait, aren't you now looking at it again from the angle of the great powers? But so great powers like China and the US, when they think about economic security and they get worried and fearful, they close off, right? But when smaller countries like Hungary get fearful, they actually do the opposite now with the connectivity approach. They're like, let's not put all our eggs in one basket. Let's make sure that we put eggs in different baskets. So the Hungarians have been very active getting Korean and Chinese business to Hungary, while also maintaining their traditional industrial connections with Germany. So, if Germany sinks, maybe China doesn't sink. If Korea sinks, then China's still there. Maybe, and at the same time, they have connections with Central Asian states via the Organization for Turkic States. So there's all, so their strategy is, let's put all the eggs in different baskets.
I heard that diversification is a strategy adopted by many countries for protecting their economic security. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The question is that when they adopt the diversification strategy, and is that how much they are going to reduce or cut off the international cooperation with the rest of the world.
Okay.
And I think this is a big issue. Okay. Diversification is, I think every country needs to diversify their economic relations with others. Yeah. But the question is that during the process, and it's not by, okay, I diversify my relationship with 5 guys, and each of them have, I want to have each of them with a 20% trade with them, right? And that makes sense. But then some countries, no, we diversify, we cut off the trade 10% from each. Rather than,
that's not good.
That's the opposite.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Okay, I have 10% relationship with you and 5% with him, or I increase 5% with, so make it equal. Yeah. I have all have 10% with 5 people. Rather than, okay, for the security, I cut off, purposely reduce the connection. So in Chinese, we say it's better to do plus rather than do minus.
That's a good note to end on. It's a positive note, because Professor Yan, thank you very much. You have a very busy schedule here in Hungary. You'll be giving a talk here at the Danube Institute in the theater at 5:30. So you just have about half an hour to recuperate. This is also, I'm saying this to the viewers, because usually in our webinars we have a longer session, and then we have Q&As, and then we even have an after party where everyone in the audience jumps in, and we're having a good time grabbing drinks. So today we have a shorter episode because Professor Yan's schedule is very busy. But I'm happy that we went through the concept of Wangdao, its contemporary relevance in Chinese political thought and for understanding our contemporary world. And of course, we had a special focus on Hungary because we're shooting this from Hungary, from the Danube studio. And our next episode is probably going to be on the party state concept. And it will be in the third Thursday of every month, right? And it's going to be in May. And let me check real quick what the date is. That should be the 16th of May. So the 16th of May, 4 o'clock Central European time, 10 o'clock New York time. we'll be coming back at you, and of course, we'll be advertising it. So thank you, Professor Yan, and we'll be rounding up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to join this webinar.
Professor, okay, thank you.